going on, everybody? It's the boy Smooth Order. Welcome to NWAP, Negroes with the Podcast, Season 5, Episode 13. I'm Smooth Order.
Hey people, I'm Tunde. Talk 7.
Oh my god.
This nigga's talking like he never been on a podcast before. Hi guys, I'm Tunde. Talk 7.
You.
I'm sorry, y'all. This is Lextopia. I got an attitude today. Just letting everybody know ahead of time, but everything is funny to me right now. Whew.
Everything's fun.
He said, "Hello, everybody."
Yeah, I feel like we didn't record. Maybe it's been like 2 weeks since we put out an episode. I guess by the time this comes out, it'll have been 2 weeks. Hopefully, everybody had a good Thanksgiving. Your December is going off to a pretty good start. God damn, this will be like mid-December by the time this episode comes out. It'll probably be like a few days before my birthday. I turned 33 on December 15th.
AKA old as shit.
Yeah, man, niggas is old out here, man. Like, I'm fucking.
Oh,
it's so crazy.
Podcast.
Yo, so check this out, right? So like I'm moving into my own crib at the end of the month, right? So like this morning, I had to call the electric bill, not the electric bill. I had to call like Spectrum to like set up my internet and shit. And yesterday, I had to make an appointment for the electric company to turn on the electricity in my apartment. And I just keep thinking about that, like my apartment, like my apartment. That's just kind of creepy. It's just kind of cool. It's like it's my apartment, and I have to do all this stuff for my apartment.
So you're there now already?
No, I'm not there. No,
Hey.
I don't move until the end of the month.
You know what I think about when I hear that?
What?
That's one more bill.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, yeah. Like the newness gonna wear off. Trust me.
So that first month comes, and then other bills come.
Yeah. That shit. I mean, I'm not expecting for the feeling to stay long, but it's here now. We're just gonna, we're gonna roll with it. We're gonna roll with it. Before we get into the episode, we've got comments that we haven't read in months. So, of course, we definitely love your comments. It's a big part of our podcasting experience, because we like to hear the feedback from everybody. And we definitely like to share those comments with everybody, especially when they're good. And if they suck, we're going to roast you. But we don't discourage you from sending honest feedback to us. So, since we haven't read them for a while, Tunde, I know that you said we had a couple.
We have 3. I'll do the first 2, and then Lexi is going to do the last one. So the first one is titled, "This Show is Like Fine Wine," by Addy_sings. 5 stars, by the way. Gets so much better with time. I miss 5/5 being on the show. That's it. Short and sweet. We miss him being on the show too.
We do. We miss the homie, but he out here like Van's being Van. And if you know anything about Van, then Van being Van is about all the explanation that you would actually need right now.
Yep. And he's being a family man too.
Mm-hmm. Isn't Benji cute?
He's so cute.
All right. So
damn, I just thought about something. Vanna was the youngest out of all of us, and this nigga got a whole family already.
Right. He got his whole life together.
Right. And we just out here like, oh well, shit.
Trying to figure it out.
Indeed.
Remember what we said about comparing ourselves?
Oh no, I wasn't comparing. I was just making note that he was the youngest one on the podcast, and yet this nigga is definitely like a 64-year-old man already, because he has a whole family.
But he was 64 when he was like 20.
Yeah, he was. He's been an old nigga for a long time. Shout out to the homie.
Yeah, I remember him doing a podcast talking about, oh, my feet hurt. I was playing basketball.
Yeah. Talk about he need a heat pack.
All right.
That's crazy.
So the next review is 5 stars, also titled "Real Recognize Real," like 10 exclamation marks, by Buff Bagwell 04, and he's actually my Neo. Shout out to him. So it says, excellent topics, excellent cast, Real conversation is what this podcast is all about. Much love and respect. 5 more exclamation marks.
I
Well, you can
appreciate
count
that.
those.
We
No.
used to. We used to in the earlier seasons. We used to count the exclamation points or whatever.
Wow. The last one says, "Thank you," from Marquise. And his review says, "This is the first podcast that I became such a huge fan of, and it really changed how I navigated life as a young Black person. Being able to hear the healthy balance of Blackness and successful Black people got me through college, and the content is growing. It's now helping me in my young adult life as well. I appreciate what y'all do." Thanks, Marquise. 5 stars from him. And I know he just graduated in May, so he's trying to figure out his working life as an adult as well. So,
Oh. Speaking of graduations, nigga,
uh-oh.
we'll make an announcement. I am officially finished with my master's program. I graduate technically by the time this podcast come out, I will have already graduated. But I'm not going to graduation because I got to go to work. That is the pinnacle of old nigga shit right there. It's like, yeah, I was gonna go to graduation, but I gotta go to work. So now I have a master's degree in digital journalism.
Congrats.
Let's
send you some money. What's your Cash App, G? Y'all send G $1 for graduating.
What is my Cash App?
Oh man, you're not ready. That's how you know you're not a bird.
Wait, shit, hold on, wait. Is somebody gonna donate me? So let me go look at my Cash App right quick.
You should, because I'm gonna put it in the show notes. Like, send G some graduation bread.
You get first month's bills.
I don't. Yeah, that'd be great. I don't even know what my Cash App is, and I have a Venmo account, and I don't know what my Venmo is either. Wow. Man, I'm doing real bad right now.
Right. Well, you can always Cash App NWAP cast because we need it too.
Yeah, you can send it to the podcast. You can send the Cash App to the podcast.
$. Do you want your name out there?
Is this my cash? Is it my is it my full name or is it my? It's my full name. Yeah. Nah, don't tell nobody that shit.
Wow.
If you want to send me some money, send that shit to the NWAP Cash App and just put "this is for Garfield" and I'll just transfer the money over and shit.
That's real.
Because I don't
change your Cash App name, please.
You said what?
Change your Cash App name.
I don't never use it. That's why I don't. That's
and
all I want.
The year you were born.
God damn! What the fuck?
Wow.
Why did I do that?
Must have made that in your naive days.
I mean, I think I made the Cash App when I was actually trying to get some money from somebody who actually knows me in real life. But like, it's not an app that I use because I usually use Venmo anyway, which is connected to Facebook. So like, it's like a lot less likely that somebody's going to be doing some super wild, ridiculous type shit, on there. But while we're talking about super ridiculous, wild type shit, let's talk about your boy Kareem Hunt, who is no longer in the NFL. So, if you don't know, Kareem Hunt used to be a running back for the Kansas City Chiefs. Kareem Hunt got into an altercation, I believe it was earlier this summer.
In February.
It was in February. So the Kansas City Chiefs knew that he had gotten into a situation, and they allowed Kareem Hunt to keep playing in the season. Kansas City Chiefs are like 10-2 right now. And actually pretty exciting to watch. This is probably the best that I've ever seen the Kansas City Chiefs like play. And by play, I mean like when I go to ESPN and look at stuff, I notice that they're 10-2 and that they have a really good quarterback because I don't watch the NFL. And then a video comes out of Kareem Hunt. We're going to talk about the video in a second, but there's a video of Kareem Hunt assaulting a woman in a hotel, and he got cut. The Kansas City Chiefs waived him, and nobody claimed him off the waivers. He is right now a free agent, and he's not even on Madden. They took him off in the update.
Oh.
So I was gonna sign him to my franchise team, whatever. But they, he's not on the game anymore. Initial reactions to an NFL team cutting a player for violence against a woman.
I think it's a business decision. I don't think they did anything. I don't think they did it under any like moral obligation. Because
Isn't
I
that what
mean,
we
when the video
say
came
every
out,
time this
you said what?
happens? Isn't that what we say every time this happens? Because what was it? The
No,
other
no, no, no,
guy.
no, no. Let's be real. Because Ruben Foster came out, he got picked up, and that's only because there was no video. If there was
That
video,
nigga
if there
got
was video, if there was video, Ruben Foster would not have got claimed.
that nigga got arrested here.
Yeah, and then
he got
and,
arrested in Tampa.
and
Like we were actually, I was actually in the newsroom at the time that the call came in that he had gotten arrested. I was like,
speaking of Ruben Foster, right before we started the podcast, it's finals week, so I'm grading like tests and stuff, and I had ESPN on, and they have an interview on today with the woman who he beat up, Ruben Foster. So like the Redskins, they didn't, or they didn't give a damn about like what he did, because they knew that it's like it doesn't matter until you see the physical evidence or the visual evidence. Because when Ray Rice punched his girlfriend at the
Ray
time,
Rice. That's what I was thinking about.
when he punched his girlfriend at the time, there was no video, but they only suspended him for 2 games. And then the video came out, and now he never played a game again. So I think it's when there's video attached to it, then I think it forces the hand of the NFL, because like Garfield said, when it first happened in February, they didn't do anything. They took him for his word. It's like, I didn't do anything. I wasn't arrested. So they did nothing.
And the Kansas City Chiefs said that they cut him because he wasn't like forthcoming about. They basically said that he lied about
So
what
like they
had
try to
actually
get him
happened.
on like the perjury of it and not on what actually happened.
Well, it's not perjury because you have to be in like
right. Well, I mean, I'm just trying to, I guess, compare it as far as it's not about what happened. It's about
the lie.
Him lying. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
But it should be about what happened. That's why I said the NFL or the Chiefs are not under any more obligation, because if it was about what actually happened, they would have, like, if TMZ can get that video, the NFL could have got that video. They didn't want to.
Can you guys speak to what the timeline is on why I've seen some people having conversations about the NFL had that video, they saw that video. What is the argument for that?
I don't know what the argument is for that, because if the video didn't come, I mean, all right, so I think the NFL is a multi-billion-dollar organization. Mm-hmm. I'm sure every single team in the NFL has like a team of investigators to go out, basically like a team full of old Olivia Popes, like either go out to fix the situation or they're already aware of the situation before anybody else is aware of the situation. So it makes it difficult for the NFL to say we hadn't seen this tape until today, because they're a multi-billion-dollar organization with a team of Olivia Popes for all 32 teams, and then the NFL itself has its own investigative team. So if there's all of these resources being devoted into finding out things that's going on with the players, how is it that none of y'all motherfuckers knew, but TMZ did? So that's probably where that comes from.
Okay.
I also want to point out, we can't let the Cleveland PD off the hook either, because they came to the scene, they saw the tape at the time, and they still didn't charge him.
You know what? I've been trying to I knew that we were going to talk about this today, and I've been trying to figure out how I'm going to phrase this. And I think I figured it out. In the context of videos that we've seen of men attacking women or any sort of domestic violence situation, I actually didn't think the Kareem Hunt tape was that bad. When I saw the video, TMZ said Kareem Hunt brutalizes woman. He kicked her. She pushed her so hard she fell. So I'm reading this and I'm thinking, like, when they say he kicked her, like he like Leonidas kicked her ass down the pit, because that's, in the context of NFL videos when it comes to violence against women, like that's what I'm expecting to see. So I'm watching the video, and in the video, Kareem Hunt is in a hotel hallway or something like that, and there's a woman that he is arguing with. some people allege that the woman called him a nigger because the woman is white. I don't know if that's actually true or not. I don't even think that really matters as far as him
It
putting his
doesn't.
hands on her. It doesn't really matter, but that's what people were saying. So he pushed her or whatever. She like approaches him like she's like trying to fight or something like that. People are sort of like holding Kareem Hunt back or whatever like that. And then like they're like pulling him into the room and she's like following them or whatever. And then I guess Kareem Hunt pushed. I don't know if you could, I don't remember being able to see the push on camera. You just see somebody being pushed and flying like out into the camera and then like bumping into the woman that, you know, Kareem Hunt had the situation with. She falls to the ground.
They both fall to the ground.
Right. The guy that got pushed and the woman fall to the ground. And then like he's kind of out there, whatever, and like somebody's standing in between him and the woman, and he kind of kicks her in the butt. But not like it wasn't like a soccer
Like one of those
kick.
like shove
Kind of
you
like
out.
like if you was walking in your living room and you was trying to move something out of your way, but you didn't want to like full force kick it, you just kind of patted it with your foot. You know what I'm saying? That's how he kicked her in the butt. Now, I'm not saying that any of this is okay because it's not. What I am saying is in the context of NFL videos and shit, in terms of what gets people kicked out of the league, I didn't think the video was going to get him kicked out of the league. Like, I thought the video was going to get him suspended. I thought the video was going to get him a fine. I didn't think the video was like I said, like in terms of whatever my expectations were walking into this in the context of what we know about NFL players and domestic violence situations when it comes to videos getting niggas kicked out of the league. Because again, we just talked about Reuben Foster having a domestic violence situation and being claimed by the Redskins, right? No video. We talked about Ray Rice being kicked out of the league because this nigga cold cocked his fiance, or she wasn't his fiance at the time, cold cocked his girlfriend and was dragging her down the hallway, right? We talked about Greg Hardy, who was playing for the Cowboys and shit, and the way that he his domestic violence situation or whatever like that. He was able to stay on the team. And I'm looking at the Kareem Hunt video, and I'm like, oh, this nigga like got kicked off the team and is like out of the league right now. But this video ain't that bad in the context of what niggas was talking about. Again, not excusing his behavior. I'm not saying he deserved to be on an NFL team. I'm saying I'm surprised, given the context, that he's no longer on an NFL team. Tunde.
That goes back to my original point. You don't like in comparison. It doesn't matter if there's video. Greg Hardy, if you read a transcript of what happened to Greg Hardy, he should still be in jail right now. But the fact that there was no video gives the NFL or gives in this case Jerry Jones the excuse to go out and sign a Greg Hardy, because no one in their right mind could read the transcript of what happened when there's domestic violence involved and there's guns involved to say, oh, I'm going to sign this player. And with Kareem Hunt, I think him getting kicked out the league is not just this. Like he has like two more like cases. Like he had a
he got a few
beat up a dude in the club. So
yeah. Well, that makes sense. Well, that makes sense. I don't like I said, I don't keep up with the NFL like that. Like so I didn't know like who.
I just been paying attention to this because I've been arguing about this, since last week. But I don't know if we're going to talk about the whole gender side of it. Are we? Like how men are like taking Kareem Hunt's side on this?
Oh, I mean, again, that's why I brought up the thing about people were saying that she allegedly called him like called him a nigger. Like people were bringing that up, and I mean, like I think we've talked about this several times on the podcast before that like men have like these very, very violent fantasies about beating up women and like creating whatever excuse is necessary to beat women up. Like, so the Kareem Hunt thing, it ain't surprising. Like men taking Kareem Hunt's side or whatever isn't surprising. Again, nothing that I've heard would give me the impression that it was okay for him to put his hands on her. And if she called you a nigger, then you're an NFL player with resources. You just go get some women to beat her up. You ain't gotta do nothing.
So, two things. Let's say, I don't know, whatever reason he was to get that mad. Let's say he was that mad, and he shoved the dude into the woman, right?
Right.
Both of them went down. It's like, obviously it wasn't like a light push. It was a shove, and like they hit heads, right? So she tried to get up and she fell back down. So it was obviously she was like, I'm not gonna say she was concussed, but she was out of it because she tried to stand up a couple of times and kept falling back down. You would think like the empathy side of things were kicking, like, oh, this woman's actually pretty hurt. And what did he do? Not saying like, I'm not gonna say he did what the media did, and he didn't like karate kick her. He did take his foot and push her back down for his foot, right? So like,
right,
it was an empathy kick. And second, Kareem Hunt has to like be smarter than that. Like, you're an NFL running back. You've seen this play out before in NFL.
Everybody's seen this shit numerous times.
What if they all just have CTE and this is the NFL's fault in the first place because these niggas can't think?
I'm still not excusing that. I'm sorry, because if you're gonna blame like them like getting violently hit, then why doesn't every NFL player have this issue? So I'm not gonna say because somebody played football that gives them the right to go and out and beat a woman.
I agree with you.
Go ahead.
And I don't think it's excusable at all, period, as well. And I do understand that while it sometimes kind of sucks in general that notables are held to some higher standard, that they do need to understand that it's kind of their responsibility to make sure that they react to things a certain way and that they don't do certain things. So I agree with that. What I'd like to talk a little bit more about, though, is the consequence to this action and the NFL's response and how the NFL handled it. We have been talking, as G mentioned before in different episodes, about men in the NFL and their quips with the law and what happens with them afterwards, whether we think it's justified, not justified, whatever. In this case, the NFL, or maybe we should rather say the team, I'm not sure, but they took action, whether they knew about it before and now they just had to because they had to or whatever, but they took action. And so what I want to know from you guys is, A, are you upset about, like, are you glad that, okay, they took action and they did something? B, do you feel it's too much, or do you agree with completely kicking him out of the NFL forever? Like, how do you feel about that versus some kind of suspension or, okay, like, go take a break, go get some help, whatever, especially in comparison to other fields where nobody else in the world or in the country is like, if certain things happen, you just can't do this for the rest of your life, unless it's some kind of malpractice or something like that.
No, you can go ahead.
He's not kicked out the league forever. Right now he's on the commissioner's exempt list, which means he can't play or practice at all. And why did they finish the investigation? And I think they're taking the time because
they're investigating it still.
They fucked up with the Ray Rice thing. They investigated the Ray Rice thing. They gave him 2 games, and then the videotape came out. And then they were like, "Oh, he only got 2 games for this shit." So they want to make sure they have everything in order before they hand down their final suspension. Because what if like they say, "Okay, here's the video. This happened. We gave him a 6-game suspension," and it came out that the day after that happened, he went out and fucking burned a puppy or something. Okay.
So as of right now, he's just cut from the team for sure.
From the team.
And nobody picked him up off the waivers.
He's gonna play again. I guarantee he plays next year at some point. Somebody's gonna pick him up. But
these niggas love to pick up everybody except your boy Kaepernick, don't they?
Oh, for sure. Like the Redskins signed Mark Sanchez.
The who?
The redacted
Washington football team.
They signed
the NFL. They're so damn
trash, right? And then because like the starting quarterback got hurt, then the backup to the starter got hurt, so they signed Mark Sanchez, right? So now you need another quarterback. They signed. I mean, he's a black quarterback, so I guess I can't be too mad. I forgot his name, Josh Jackson, I think, who threw his last NFL pass like 7 years ago, but they didn't sign Kaepernick. So it's obvious. I mean, it's obvious it's collusion, but it's amazing like what the NFL would like accept. That they'll accept, these dudes who obviously have issues with, keeping their hands off women, but they won't sign someone who, will stand up.
Roethlisberger, wasn't he having some comments about somebody else when it's like, my nigga, you don't
Yeah,
need to talk about
he
nobody.
definitely.
Yeah,
Yeah,
he
he
Like if
definitely
I was
knocked
him,
it
I
down.
would just be quiet, bro.
Yeah. So, but that's the NFL for you. They're a bunch of hypocrites, and all they really care about is the bottom line. So
I mean, they're a business.
yeah,
That's
but
what businesses do.
I'm not saying that yes, you're a business, but at some point you have to draw a line, because even as a business, there are still women who watch football and support football. So what you're saying is, at the end of the day, you don't give a damn about women.
Honest question. Do you
Every
think
February to try out the pink socks and say you support breast cancer, but you don't care about domestic violence?
that at the end of the day, there's anything that could happen within the NFL that would make people stop watching football and not
No.
support watching the NFL?
No.
Honestly, there's not.
I think the only thing
They just have to do what they need to do to look decent.
I think they just have to do what they need to do to stay profitable. But I don't think there's anything that they would do
There's
that they
nothing.
would be that they'd be able to do things that might lessen the amount of money they make. But I don't think I think the NFL is I don't want to say it's too big, because nothing is too big to fail, but niggas really love football. And when I say niggas, I just mean everybody. I don't even mean like black people. I just mean
Right.
like people in general.
And even
love
to that
football.
point, there's no sponsor who would pull themselves from it, I don't think, because it's that, like, even if there's things happening
Like, I
socially or
think
things that are irresponsible, like these brands aren't going to be like, oh well, I don't want to work with
know
you.
what?
They're not going to do that.
I do know what could make the NFL fail. If we found out the NFL was funding terrorism, that'd probably make it fail. Like, it had to be something that fucking extreme. And even then, people would probably still be like, man, they ain't really funding no damn terrorism for real.
They're trying to scapegoat and say this was the person. It wasn't the whole NFL.
Yeah, right. They'd find some way to pick and choose. As far as Kareem Hunt is concerned, I don't care about him being cut. And not even because I don't watch the NFL, but because, I mean, nigga, you dumb. I mean, you shouldn't be putting your hands on women, and you got cut. Oh, well. I guess the only thing is, it's like, I'm not giving the NFL credit for that. I'm never giving the NFL credit for anything when it comes to women, because that ain't where it's at. Like, they're not doing things they're not doing things to protect women. They're doing things to protect themselves. And it's really hard for me to assign some sort of value, some sort of positive value, when I know that you're not. Like, the end result matters, but like, if you're talking about how I'm going to give you some sort of credit or give you any credence about your actions, like, the intent also has to come into consideration. And there is nothing in the NFL's history that would show me that their intent is to protect women. Because, as Tunde already said, Kareem Hunt will probably be on somebody's roster next year.
But I actually think, and I don't know if this is me being too optimistic,
Yes, it is.
think that in this era of like people actually caring about what people care about, that if there was a team that was literally like, yo, we're gonna clean up our team, even if it's just within what they can do, we're gonna clean up our team, like get rid of this, get rid of that, we care about this, we care about that. I think that they would get more attention, end up being more profitable, like people actually support them more. Like, I think that would happen. And so
Right, but
even with Colin, like, I was surprised, like, if a team really was like, yo, the Black Lives Matter and we do want Colin on our team and we care about XYZ, that even more so his jersey would, so even more so people would support it, like, outside of the criticisms.
Here's the thing. What's the team's record after they do that? because that's the only thing that's going to
I
matter.
I think
If
people
the
would
team,
still. I think people would still
no,
support, and I think
listen,
that people would want to be on that team. I think that they would be able to
no,
recruit well.
no,
Yeah, I
listen,
think so.
listen. If your team is 0-16, nobody cares if it's a team full of good guys, right?
Not
If
at
your team
all.
is 12 and
But you're
your team is
saying there's
12.
not good guys who have good, who
No,
are
listen,
good,
listen,
like in
listen,
football.
listen, listen. What I'm saying. If your team is 0-16 with a team full of good guys, nobody cares. If your team is 12-4 and you've got a few bad apples, people are cool with that. If your team is 0-16 with a whole bunch of bad apples, then people are going to care about that. Not because the team is full of bad apples, but because they're going to attribute this 0-16 to them being the bad apples. If your team is 12-4 with a bunch of good guys, then we're talking about what you're talking about right now, where it's like, oh,
I think
they
that's
got a team
possible.
full. They got a team, but the point that I'm making is the only reason why the bad guys,
That's
quote unquote, get to stay on these teams is because they're generally the best players at their position, or one of the best players at their position, right? Like the only reason Ben Roethlisberger is still on the NFL roster is because he's a two-time Super Bowl winning quarterback, right? If Ben Roethlisberger was Mark Sanchez and got rape charges,
Give
we'd
me the
have
fuck out
never
of
heard
here.
from this nigga again. You know what I'm saying? So like your talent level is commensurate to how much leeway you're going to be given by any given fan base, or if they found Tom Brady with 65 keys of coke and 16 AKs and
Oh, that nigga's not.
his fucking
He ain't going nowhere.
nigga, you wouldn't hear about that shit until Tom Brady wasn't even in the league anymore.
Yeah, but
We get a special ESPN 30/30 report like 10 years later about Tom Brady being like the biggest gangster in Boston.
and look at Aaron Hernandez. Look how long he was able to do the shit he did because he was that good.
And he was out here killing niggas.
And on the flip side, right? Let's say
But I mean, it has to start somewhere.
the Jets, right? Let's say the Lions signed Colin Kaepernick, right? Do you know how many protests there would be because Colin Kaepernick was on an NFL team? But let's say the next year after they signed him, he goes 13-3 and wins a fucking Super Bowl. Yeah, you wouldn't hear a peep from nobody because he wins.
That's all they care about. That's all people
Well, how
care
about we
about, man.
cultivate the
No,
talent that's good talent, that's also morally good.
I mean, you talking about some other shit. You talking about? I mean, I'm not saying that what you saying is like not legit. I'm just saying that like sports is different, man. The sports is different. Like these niggas can barely read, but they can carry a ball, and people will placate you because that's just how it is. And that extends to everything. If you're a shitty person, but you're talented, people, and we're not even talking about sports right now. We're talking about anything, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you're good at something, if you're a generational talent at something, there is no incentive for you to be a good person because somebody is always going to be willing to pay you and placate you for whatever the fuck it is that you want to do.
Why is that
So,
not a problem or as much a problem in the NBA? And so, what's the difference? I personally kind of think NBA players are a little smarter, but really, like, if they're not having all these same, and they do have a lot of bad apples too, but it's not the same. And so, why?
I think with the NBA is one, there's a lot less people. There's only 10 people on the court at any given time, right? You can see their faces. There's only 15? Was it 15 people on a roster?
Oh yeah.
About 15 people on a roster, and like 10 of them are probably like your main players, and they have like your reserve players and people and that kind of shit, right? There's 450 NBA players. There's like,
so there's more people. It's gonna have more bad people.
Well,
but the
okay,
stars,
so
the stars,
no. But listen, but even with the stars, right? Do you know what Kareem Hunt looks like?
Only now because of the news.
Right, but before that, did you have any idea what he looked like?
No.
He's one of the biggest quarterbacks in the NFL right now.
Right, right.
But I mean, I also don't fuck with football.
But listen, this is my point though. Like big stars in the NFL, even if you don't fuck with big stars in the NBA, even if you don't fuck with the NBA, you kind of have a familiarity of who they are because they're visible. They don't wear helmets. You know, basketball. One person can change a game in more ways than in an NFL game, right? You could be a generational player on a shitty NBA team and still be a fucking superstar because that's how the NBA is. That's how the NBA markets their stars.
If you look at
the NBA markets their stars. The NFL markets the team. You have a face of a franchise, but it's the team that they're marketing.
and
So with the NBA, I think it's with the NBA, it's less places to hide, really, because everybody knows what the fuck you look like.
So how does that correlate with NBA stars getting in less trouble than NFL stars because they're smarter?
Not only because one, I think it's because they're smarter, and two is because there's a lot more focused attention on them because people know what they look like. Like I just told you about Kareem Hunt. He's one of the best running backs in the league. I don't know what the fuck the nigga looks like. You know what I'm saying? Like, and I don't watch, but
I don't feel as much pressure to be a certain way because people aren't all in my face all the time every day.
It's like I think with the NBA it's just different.
Accountability.
I think that the NBA also has a better player personnel office as well. They prepare even coming into the NBA. I think the NBA prepares their players more for better for the financial aspect of being in the NBA, how to interact, how to deal with groupies, how to deal with when you're in a club or somewhere versus the NFL, which I think it's just a bad culture.
Which somebody needs to start cleaning up. All right.
I feel like with the NBA, no, it's cool. I feel like the NBA too is it's different. Like there's people on the court. Like I just think the way that the game is played, I think that just kind of translates into how much more aware you are of whatever.
Even if you look at the logo of both leagues, the NFL logo is a shield. It's about the brand of the NFL. The NBA logo is an actual person.
Right. So yeah, I think that.
I mean, I still think none of that necessarily translates to if you're a big star, you're making X amount of money, you're one of the best people. Why on this side they act right and on this side they don't?
Because of what? I guess I think it's just the way that I think
it's still just them. It's them.
But it's also the culture of the league. It's the culture of the league too.
If you're in the NBA, right, more than likely you're at least on average you're 6'6", 6'7". When you're walking through a crowd, people are gonna recognize you. If you're 10, people are oh, I know he plays for somebody. Most NFL.
What does that have to do with you acting out or not?
For instance, because if you feel like you can move in anonymity.
And relative anonymity.
But that's weird if you're saying somebody feels like they can act a certain way just because nobody knows them. You shouldn't want to act that way.
That's you talk. Let's see. That's I'm not even insulting, but that's the naivete talking, right? If people recognize you for doing something, or you think there's a less likely chance of them recognizing you for doing something, you're more apt to do it.
Okay. So over this time as being in football, you just never have that click moment of, oh shit, though everybody sees, knows, analyzes, all of that maybe.
I'm not saying they don't. I'm just saying it's not the same.
What if that was part of a solution and that we start to be more in football players' faces as individuals?
That ain't how the game works.
It's more of them.
Outside of the game.
I think it goes to how NFL contracts are set up anyway, because NFL players come and go on a weekly basis. So somebody could be like, yeah, I played for the NFL for 2
years. I know a lot of people who play for the NFL. And it's okay.
In the NBA, if you get a contract, you're there. So guarantee you're there. So unless the NBA going to pay you to go away and not play, but
the NFL's out of here in the next 20 years.
I mean, I hope so. I don't like football.
That probably has a lot less to do with what's actually happening with the people, and more. That probably has less likely to do with shit like the domestic violence situations that we're discussing, and more to do with the fact that the players are probably dying off. Yeah. Because of
that they have the brains of 70-year-olds at 23.
And parents aren't allowing their kids to play football anymore.
And just the societal norms and air quotes and shit that goes around a boy and playing little league, and now you're fighting and now you're aggressive, and just all of that I think is all right, bro.
Yeah.
It's a lot.
I mean, I kind of felt like we just talked the whole episode up.
What did they talk about?
Oh, we were supposed to talk about Mark Lamont Hill and then George Bush, but I mean, we spent like the first 30 minutes talking about the goddamn Kareem Hunt in the NFL.
You want to just pick one of those and just go?
We can save Mark Lamont Hill for next week because
We can see what else happens with it.
we can see what else happens with it. But George Bush is dead, so we can talk about him. So
Out of
George
here.
George Herbert Walker Bush is dead at 94 years old. He was really old, and they just
that's what people do. They die.
Yeah, that's old people do. They absolutely do die. So they buried him. Well, no, they had a ceremony for his burial service. Today's Thursday, so this was Tuesday. No, it was yesterday. This was Wednesday. NBC special report because I was at work. So they had special burial for George Herbert Walker Bush, and you know, they talked. They said nice things, and they went the fuck on about their business. And on social media, people have really just kind of been riding this George Herbert Walker Bush thing. I saw one woman say that she couldn't stand George W. Bush, but he lost his parents within the last year. Now she just wants to hug him, and I'm just like, nigga, his parents were old as fuck. His parents were old and they died. Like this nigga's had his parents for like how I don't know how old W is. I think W is like 70. His parents for 70 years. They died. He'll be okay. You know?
Let's take the Old Testament. Like people ain't supposed to live to like fucking 1200.
And then I've seen people like the relationship between W and Michelle with like him walking over there to give her a piece of candy and oh my god, he's so cute. I saw people inviting W to the cookout, which I'm gonna burn that shit to the ground. I don't think we should have a cookout anymore. And you know, people saying that you shouldn't say anything negative about George Herbert Walker Bush because he's dead. And I don't agree.
Who else died recently?
You guys...
And that same thing happened. Oh, John McCain.
Yeah.
Just because you die, especially if you leave behind a legacy of shitty things that's going to affect people for generations to come, I think it's fair for people to take that time and critique your body of your life's work. I'm not saying it's cool for you to like, you know, like shit on their grave and call them all types of names. But if you're talking about the things that they did while they were alive, why not? Like when Hitler died, I'm sure there were people who were saying, oh, you know, it sucks that he blew his brains out in the bathroom, but you know, can we just take a moment to just, you know, reflect on the things that he did? No, fuck that. I'm not saying that George basically this is Hitler, but you know, he was a shitty president. So I'm going to talk about the things
to you. So
yeah.
because there's the opinion, because it can be opinionated, right? Depending on what you think was most important for the country, what you care about for this country, your economic standpoints, all of these standpoints, because there are people on this side and mostly on one side or another, then it makes sense that at the end of it, okay, there's people who think that was great and people who think it was bad.
You praise his name. I'm not saying don't praise his name. I'm saying if I have something shitty to say about him or his work, then that's my prerogative. I can say something shitty. Don't come at me if I say something shitty. I didn't come at you because you said something good. If you wanna praise his names to the mountains, then so be it. I mean, I probably won't associate with you, but I'm just gonna look at you and go about my business. So
I wonder when, knock on wood, it doesn't happen soon, but I wonder when Obama passes how people are going to talk about the good and the bad things. For any president, there's going to be a lot of good things and a lot of bad things. And I think what about George H.W., what makes it overwhelmingly like, why are y'all on his nuts right now, is the fact that so many of his bad things were like the deaths of like hundreds of thousands and millions of people in other countries, and the responsibility for all of those things, like the whole, even with his like part of his war on drugs part after Reagan, that was like putting these kids in jail over like weed and stuff like that, is just like, bro, that's ridiculous. But I think it's an in hindsight thing that you really see all of those things and can say that. But even looking, what I like to do every time there's some kind of political thing happening in the United States, looking at like the BBC and how other people phrase things. The BBC even was writing articles talking about, oh, this George H.W. Bush's funeral was packaged for the Trump era. Like, so it's almost like the legacy and the funeral and how they did things was framed as a positive thing, because I mean, it does kind of reflect like what some of the leadership cares about and thinks about now. So even if they can see that, I think it's interesting that like within our own country we can't see these things, and we can't let somebody say something like, oh, he did this good thing, cool, and you can't let this bad person say, well, he did these bad things, so I don't, like, why would I just all of a sudden say nice things about him just because he's gone? So like I do agree with you with that. Like I don't think I have to pull out of my ass something good just because he's not here anymore. Like,
Listen,
period.
when I die, I'm pretty sure there's gonna be people who's gonna say some shit about me that, you know.
Man, don't let me get on that stage.
But like that's people's prerogative. Like, now if you're being mean just to be mean, that's different. Like if you're like, like
Yeah, I think the people that I saw for the most part who were like, man, what are y'all talking about? Like, why are y'all celebrating somebody just because they died? And they had receipts and they can bring up facts about like, well, these things happen and these things happen for that reason. I'm not gonna sit here and act like, oh man, salute to this past president. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
exactly.
But and especially from Black people, because I saw some Instagram posts where people would be like, yeah, I'm glad he's gone because XYZ. People in the comments like, man, at least let him get in the ground first. Oh man, he just died and blah blah. Like, bro, what the fuck does it matter? Whether his eyes just closed or whether it's 10 years from now.
Yeah, exactly. So my retort to that would be, so then if you're not fine with right now, when you give me the exact timeline where I can start talking about this. Like it's the same thing when celebrities die, right? When let's say
I feel like we owe it to them to say
when Prince died, right? And people were like, oh, like people are crying on the timeline and like recounting that their favorite Prince memories, whatever. And then you always have these contrarians who be like, oh, I'm not gonna say Prince. I want to say somebody who's not as popular. So who's somebody that died recently is not as popular?
The extension guy.
Okay, yeah, him. When he died,
I
right?
literally just said that, niggas.
Oh, did you? We didn't.
I did. I said triple X, and then nobody just listened. That's fine.
We didn't hear you.
Sorry. Yeah, I didn't even hear you. My bad.
Okay, so triple X died, right? Like people were like recounting their memories and like this is my favorite song, and then you have these people who come out like, y'all weren't even real triple X fans anyway. Like okay, so
for a reason.
Yeah, they want people like that are they're just mad at life, right? And I put those people in the same camp as the people who got mad at people who were talking bad about George Bush's, career. They just want somebody to argue with, because when which I hope is not soon, when Barack Obama dies, you know there's going to be people coming out saying basically all the shit that he did bad, whatever, right? Or they claim he did was bad. I'm not about to go on the internet to argue with those people. I'm going to say all things that I felt he did good because I felt he was a great president. Yeah.
An article that I saw, actually, it was just a guy like in GQ. So I mean, not like it's a political thing, but I do like the way he phrased it, in that it's not about you're going out of your way to speak ill. You need to be honest about this, because what you say when somebody dies and the rhetoric that goes out when somebody dies is what becomes history. Like, we're saying that this is what matters in history, or this is not what matters in history. And so I think it's important for that to be like an honest reflection in how he exacerbated the AIDS epidemic, like all of these different things. These are some of the most long lasting effects of his presidency, which is what we need to recall in history, instead of always this like the winners write history and, oh, we just gonna think about the good things of who we want to. And but then when somebody like Obama passes and they say all these bad things, like letting them control that narrative. Like, I think it's about controlling the narrative moving forward, because there's so many. I mean, like our old presidents, like super old before us or whatever, like we don't be knowing shit about them, but like, oh, he founded America and this or that. And but then we talk about all these stories and the Trail of Tears and all this stuff, and it's like, well, why are they? You know what I mean? Like, that's the shit that gets them on our money. That's the shit that gets them all these statues, all these things. That now we're like, wait a minute, like, what's the real history? And now we want to right, and now we want to confront that, and it's like, yo, let's not let that keep happening. Like, let's talk about the bullshit now before it gets out of hand to where we got to come back and fight it, and people don't know that history because we've already exacerbated them as some amazing person that they weren't.
Yep.
So, speaking of money, what happened to them tubs?
I just said that. Trump's in office now, so it's not about to happen anytime soon.
I was just thinking about like when people talk about like not saying, like not speaking ill of the dead, right? I don't always look at it like I think the point that you made, Lex, earlier about it, like it controlling the narrative going forward. I think that's a really, really valid point. I actually think the reason might be a lot more selfish, and that I don't think people want bad things said about them when they die, which is why there's so much pushback about speaking ill, quote unquote, of the dead. If you're telling the truth, I don't think that's speaking ill. If you say, hey, you might have been a good president to somebody, but the policies and changes that you've affected in my neighborhood have affected my family in untold ways for an untold amount of time, probably until the end of time. And for that, I think you're a shitty president. I think you should be allowed to say that. When the XXX character died, he died as somebody who might have been improving his life, possibly. I have no idea. But from what we read about him being a abuser, a homophobe, and a beater of women, those are things that people are going to talk about. And
it's not saying I'm glad he's dead for anybody necessarily.
Well,
but
I mean,
that's a different discussion.
Well, yeah, that is. I was going to say, because some people did say that they were glad he was dead, but that is a different discussion.
Than to say it's wrong to tell the truth about what their life was about.
Right. I think that, when people die, they feel like they just want to be remembered in a way that is beneficial to their legacy, which I understand. What I don't think they understand is that you need to live your life in a way that is beneficial to your legacy, if that is something that you're concerned about. And I think about that a lot, like this idea of like legacy and stuff like that. Because, I'm an asshole. So people are like, well, what are they going to say about you when you die? And it's like, nigga, I don't care. I'm dead. Like, I can't hear them.
And when I'm gone, I don't care what you think about me. Just remember, when it hits the fan, brother.
When it's next year, 10 years, 20 years, you'll never be able to say, this brother lied to you, Jack. Happy birthday. Happy belated birthday.
Okay.
Really quickly, I have an update. Since you asked the question.
I didn't. I was actually in the middle of saying something, but sure.
Lex asked the question. Sorry.
I was still talking, nigga. Goddamn.
You took a break.
Oh my God. I did not take a break. I was interrupted.
All
right, go ahead.
I hate y'all niggas. Go ahead, man.
In 2016, former Secretary Jacob J. L. announced that the currency of the Harriet Tubman was being withdrawn. Was being redrawn, adding Tubman to the front and moving President Andrew Jackson to the back. basically they're basically pushing it to the back burner, so it's not going to happen anytime soon. Which is what I suspected. So no more Harriet 720s.
Nobody's surprised there.
That's all.
Yeah. So, I mean, I feel like you need to like I was saying, you need to comport yourself, and if your legacy matters to you that much, you need to comport yourself in a way that people will say those kinds of things about you in the future when you're not here anymore. And I think about that. Like, how important is my legacy to me? And is your legacy even about you? It may be more so about like what people say about you to who is left here once you're gone. But I still don't really care about that. Like, I'm not even, and I'm not even saying it in like I don't know how to explain in a way that doesn't sound rude that I do not care what people say about me now. I do not care what people say about me when I'm dead. And
you just care about you living the way you thought was right to live, and you positively affected people after you and your family.
Right. And I fully expect for people to say, I mean, I could understand why you didn't like that nigga Garfield. Like I completely get it. But the nigga was good to me. Like, I feel like I that's a legacy that I'm okay with, I guess. Man, I ain't like that nigga. But, you know, there's another person that says, well, shit, the nigga was cool with me. And if I'm that for me, if I am nothing but consistent. So if that is the consistent that is a consistent understanding of what people say about me when I'm gone or what they say about me while I'm still here, then go. But I mean, like, I don't.
And nobody's gonna be consistent. You know, that's the thing. Like there's some quote, like you're a bad guy to somebody. Like there's always somebody, you know, and
right.
Do what you do.
And that's why I don't like, that's why I don't care as much. Like, it's not a thing that
That's
I
not
think
something you
about.
can even control, like how other people viewed you to an extent.
Right, because even when you have the intention of doing something good, if it's not received the way that you think it's gonna, the people are still gonna say something terrible. Like, you could do nothing. You could never offend anybody at any part of your life. You can just go through and live a life of never offending anybody, and people will still find something that you did. They'll probably be offended that you never took a side on something.
I'm about to say that means you never did anything good, probably, or never tried to do anything.
Well, he never did anything bad, but it's not like he did anything good either. As a matter of fact, he probably had resources to do something good, but he just didn't. You know, he was probably scared. Like, people will make up whatever it is that's going to get them to where it is that they need to go, which is why I think that I don't have like that concept of like having a legacy of something that matters. Like, because niggas just gonna say whatever.
Yep.
And there's nothing that you can do about that.
Good conversations today, guys, I think.
Indeed. And I'm gonna go.
And shout out to our listeners. Shout out to Victoria. Shout out to a vocalist rival. I like her on Twitter because she like live tweets the show, and she always she's funny as hell because she don't give us no slack. Like, she'll call us out real quick on stuff.
I want to invite her to be on. I want to invite her to be on a live episode so she can live tweet like the YouTube.
Yeah,
while we're talking, she can be like, "Damn, Garfield full of shit. Damn, Tunde running again. Oh, okay, Lex. So you just gonna forget this and this and this." I'm like, all right.
Got off my neck though.
But all right, y'all. That is NWAP.
Wait, can y'all please leave us some more reviews, please, so we can read them? Because I understand, you know, y'all was going hard at the beginning, and lately it's been a little empty on them reviews. So we still need reviews. We still need 5-star ratings. We still need y'all.
5 stars, $5.
We still need y'all to show that y'all listening, because still every time we put up an episode, like, everybody still like has been screenshotting lately, like, yo, this is my favorite show. I see y'all in the tweets when people ask for podcast recommendations, y'all talk about NWAP cast. So please continue to hit us up and show us that you're listening and spread the podcast to others.
Yep.
So we can have a good legacy when we die.
All right. Catch y'all niggas next week. And non-niggas next week.
Bye.
Peace.